where we can link it to Nijgadh, because now we know that elephants are very sensitive. Now we know that physiologically things are going, there are different things that is happening inside elephants when they perceive disturbance. So, and now also now with this study where me and one of my colleague, Dr. Nijgadh, we try to understand how elephant reacts to the death of their herd member. So we wanted to know whether elephants are aware about death. For this study and this part of science, the science which deals with the response of individual towards death is called thanatology. And this is where we wanted to study the elephant thanatology, and we documented some of the initial findings. Again, this study is published, so whoever wants to know more about elephant thanatology, you can contact us. So now coming into the main agenda, that now we know the basic biology of elephants. We know that the elephants are physiologically active, that there's something called stress in elephant. Now it is important for us to know elephant movement. What is elephant movement and why it is important? So elephant movement, when we talk about elephant movement, it is important for us to keep in our mind that elephants are highly social group living animal. They are large bodied, and they have large home range, and they have large habitat, and they have large food requirements. So when they have such kind of expectation, they move a lot, and they move to meet such kind of needs. They move either seasonally or opportunistically to meet either their reproductive, nutritional, or space need. And sometimes also they move, to avoid stochastic events. When I say stochastic event, it is like to avoid some of the natural calamities like flood or drought. So sometimes in such situation, elephant move from one habitat to another habitat. So what benefit movement has made? So elephant movement actually facilitate the survival and fitness. How they do that? It helps in regular genetic exchange and also ensures the long-term viable population in elephants. So with this, so as I said, this is when this condition is when there is natural habitat, no disturbances, nothing. But now in context of Nijgadh as well, and also in many areas in India and in Nepal, there are lots of fragmentation. So what happens when elephants are in fragmented habitat or degraded habitat? In such situation, elephant movements entirely depends on the types of risk that they are projected to. What I mean by that is, there are studies that has been done in Nepal as well as in India, and they have found that elephants prefer area where there is low human activities. And elephants smartly allocate their time, their residence, speed of movement depending on the disturbances like fragmented or degradation. How they do that? In time, elephants, if they are in fragmented patch, they prefer night time, so that they can avoid direct contact with humans. And for residents, again, they'll generally, if they are in undisturbed area, they'll stay for a longer period. But in such period, they will just move faster. They'll just leave. That there is a shorter halt, or they'll just take a refuge. Sometimes they do bunching behavior, so they'll just clump together in such area to protect or to have that sense of security. And also they change the movement. They change the movement. That movement is called streaking behavior. So they move very fast when they are in disturbed site. Most of these studies have been done on African elephants and also Asian elephants. Along with that, they found that when elephants are in disturbed or fragmented habitat, they have higher level of stress hormone. So when we talk about movement, and also, many people from Nepal, they keep on contacting me about how to explain about corridors. So if I see definition of corridor, when people say about corridor, they very loosely use that term. But we need to understand what corridors exactly are. So corridors, like I said earlier, elephants are group living animals, and they have to move a lot to meet their habitat and food requirement. and also reproductive requirement. In such situation, there is something called linear landscape connectivity element. This is corridor, okay? And in this element will favor the movement but will not provide the residency. When I say that, जुन सानो न्यारो प्याच हुन्छ त्यो प्याचले चाहिँ मुभमेन्टलाई सपोर्ट गर्छ, तर त्यहाँ बस्छ ती हात्तीले त्यसलाई नै हेबिटेट बनाउन मिल्दैन, त्यस्तो त्यस्तो सानो प्याचलाई चाहिँ करिडोर भन्छ. So in this case, imagine this is source habitat A and source habitat B. अनि यहाँ चाहिँ यो हेबिटेट ए मा चाहिँ देयर इज भाइबल पपुलेसन, यहाँ पनि भाइबल पपुलेसन छ भने यो जुन कनेक्टिङ प्याच छ यसलाई करिडोर भन्छ. अनि यो दुईटा हेबिटेटलाई चाहिँ दे आर बीन सेपरेटेड बाई ह्युमन सेटलमेन्ट, एग्रिकल्चरल, इकोलोजिकल बैरियर. इन आवर केस व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट निजगढ, इट कैन बी निजगढ एयरपोर्ट और सम डेभलपमेन्टल प्रोजेक्ट. In such situation, this connectivity, this linear line will help in accelerated movement. यो एरियामा हात्ती हिँड्दाखेरि चाहिँ they will just increase their speed. They won't relaxedly walk around. So such kind of accelerated movement favoring site or patch of forest is called corridor. And this corridor may have sometimes similar vegetation like the habitat A and habitat B. And the ultimate goal of such corridor is to, like I already said, to provide nutritional requirement, survivalship, and also to facilitate genetic exchange. So now many times we are confused that what we call what can be called as corridors. So there are multiple kind of corridors depending upon the structure and also their functionality. When I say functionality, how elephants are using it, how often elephants are using it, then depending on that we can call those area, that patch of the forest or that connecting link as a corridor. So here, as I said, here I have explained that functionality equals to the uses by elephants. So the standard corridor is there are two habitats and that is linked by the patch of the forest, that is called standard corridor. And sometimes there are two habitats that are linked by the wider corridor and this narrow one. And it depends. Sometimes elephants mostly use such kind of corridor, but occasionally, seasonally, if there is only one bull or male elephants, they may use such kind of corridor as well. And there's multiple corridors where elephants will occasionally use either this one and sometimes this one. So these are also kind of corridors which need to be protected. And there's something called foothill corridor. There will be the so there will be the hill that will be separating two habitat. And elephant use the foothill to move from one patch to another patch. This can be true in case of Nepal. And there's something called stepping stone corridor where two patches of two habitat patch and there are small sink habitats. Sano चाहिँ forest हुन्छ त्यो चाहिँ they moving from one patch to another patch, they'll just halt in this area. So these are called stepping corridors, stepping stone corridor. And if the habitat is highly fragmented and there are some patches of the forest, elephants use those patches to move from one part of forest to another part of forest, that is called fragmented forest habitat corridor. And now this is one of, like last time also in my talk I said that this is one of the corridor that I really appreciate is community corridor. Community corridor is like two habitat and it is connected by the forest which is built by community. So these are the type of corridors, and these corridors, depending upon the uses by elephants, should be protected. Now we understood about the corridor. I want to give you one example in context of India. In India, there are 5 population of elephants. One is southern population, central population, northeastern population, northwest Bengal population, and northwestern population. यो चाहिँ 5 वटा population हो हात्ती पाइने ठाउँहरु नेपाल इन्डियामा हैन. अनि यहाँ चाहिँ there was one study by Menon et al. 2017, Rite of Passage. It is easily available online, so you can go and read about it. It's a fascinating study where they actually studied the corridor in India, and in the year 2005 and 2017, and they found that that there is more fragmentation. Fragmentation is increasing in India. There is less forest cover, so as a result, there is more corridor. So you can see in 2005 there were around 88 elephant corridors, which has increased to 101. That is 101 elephant corridors in 2017. Most of the corridor in 2015 were not functional, and as fragmentation increased, the corridors are also increasing in India. In this study, so there are types. This study shows that how many corridors are in all population area, and fantastically, the Wildlife Protection Law of India, they have marked these corridors as ecologically sensitive area. And they use this model, which is called public initiative, government securement, private purchase, community securement, to actually establish this corridor. And there are people who are actually hired, and there are public participations. There is increased public participation to protect such ecologically sensitive area, and they call them as green corridor champions. This is, I think, this is one good example for Nepal to follow for elephant conservation, and particularly when we are going to have such mega project coming up in our way. With this, now let's talk about Nepal and elephants. I have, I think, list slide now. So in Nepal, elephants are protected species under the National Parks Wildlife Conservation Act 1973 and also Elephant Conservation Act Action Plan 2008. So if you see the distribution of elephants, the prehistoric distribution of elephants, यो पुरा प्याच जुन छ तराईवाला हाम्रो एरिया हैन, त्यो एरिया र चुरे शिवालिक सबै रेन्जसम्म हात्तीहरू पाइन्थ्यो पहिले प्रिहिस्टोरिक पिरियड, आई मिन prehistoric distribution भन्छ यो एरियालाई हैन. But now as what is happening in India and most of the elephant ranging country, there is increased fragmentation, degradation due to developmental project, due to urbanization, human settlement. So most of these forests are lost now. There is less connectivity, and we are left with only 4 population in Nepal. नेपालमा खाली 4वटा population छ हात्तीको. And I'm assuming that जो पनि सुनिराख्नु भएको छ सबैलाई यो कुरा थाहा नै छ होला हैन. सो 4वटा पपुलेसनमा इस्टर्न पपुलेसन हो जुन चाहिँ कोशी टापु र झापालाई इन्क्लुड गर्छ. अनि त्यसपछि सेन्ट्रल पपुलेसनमा चितवन, पर्सा अनि भिसिनिटी जुन पनि एरिया छ इन एन्ड अराउन्ड. अनि त्यसपछि वेस्टर्न पपुलेसनमा बाँके बर्दिया अनि far western population ma hamro sukla phanta aउँछ. So with this there are report that elephants and the total number of elephants in Nepal is around 100 to 150. तर कुनै कुनै report चाहिँ 180 to 220 पनि भनेको छ. There is lots of ambiguity in the number of elephants, but it is quite it is quite understandable because most of these elephants are moving population. They are moving towards north West Bengal area, they are moving towards this northwestern area, so it's quite reasonable to have such kind of ambiguity in number of elephants. Now if we see the human elephant conflict context, अब यहाँ यो नेपालको कन्टेक्स्टमा हेर्ने हो भने इस्टर्न पपुलेसनमा जति पनि हात्तीहरू छ त्यो माइग्रेटरी हात्तीहरू छ. यो हात्तीहरू धेरै जसो नर्थ वेस्ट बेंगलतिर मुभ गर्छ, महानन्दा यतातिर हुँदै गोरुमारातिर मुभ गर्छ यो हात्तीहरू हैन. अनि यही एरियामा चाहिँ धेरै एन्थ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिभिटिजहरु छ, ह्युमन इन्ड्युस एक्टिभिटिज भएको भएर यो एरियामा चाहिँ धेरै इन्क्रिज एलिफेन्ट ह्युमन कन्फ्लिक्ट झापा भो अनि अरु भिसिनिटी एरियामा चाहिँ धेरै कन्फ्लिक्ट छ. सेन्ट्रल पपुलेसनमा हेर्ने भने मोस्ट अफ द फरेस्ट आर इंटैक्ट फरेस्ट and there are lots of water resources, food resources. So elephants mostly are resident. In this case elephants are migratory, in this case elephants are residential, so they are staying there. So most of the time they may communicate with this patch of population, but they are resident elephants. Sometimes they may go to the vicinity Valmiki forest, but the movement is not that much. And in case of western population, it is quite connected to Katania Ghat and Dudhwa of India. So elephants are mostly migratory, and that's the reason there is bull-induced interaction in this area. In case of Sukla Phanta, this elephant is actually the part of that north-western population in India. So it's around 1500 elephants ko chai part ho yo, and seasonally they come and seasonally they go. So that's the reason there is not much interaction. There is less human activities in this area. So if you see the conflict situation, this is a study by Dinesh Neopane. I think it's also available online, you guys can see. So he's in his study, they have said that elephants, there were 50 humans to 13 elephants death in this area. There are 41 human death in this patch, and there were 9 humans and 3 elephants death. So this is the context of elephant human conflict in Nepal. Now we understood understood the elephant situation, elephant को population कस्तो छ नेपालमा त्यो थाहा पायौं, इन्डियामा corridor को बारेमा थाहा पायौं, corridor के हो त्यो थाहा पायौं, and so now we have lots of information with us. Now I want to say about how elephant react to changing ecological context. किनभने अब changing ecological context and also disturbances. This piece of information is very important when such mega project like Nijgadh is coming. One of the and most of this study which I'm going to talk about is on wild elephant. So one of the study by is from our lab, Dr. Nijgadh, he did study and he found that when elephant face disturbance, they modulate their calls. So that means elephants are aware about disturbance, so they can change their vocalization. This is one part of information. Another study. What they found was elephants increase their vigilance activity. They avoid human where there are lots of human activities, such places they avoid, and they prefer areas where there is resource rich, which is rich in resources. So this is one of the study, and the same research group did another study where they found that's very interesting study actually. They found striking emergent behavior. If you remember, I said that male elephant are generally solitary. तर यो स्टडीमा तिनीहरूले के पाए भने elephants were forming a group. Male elephants were forming a stable and long-term group when they are in disturbed area. So, and another study, शर्मा पुरुषोत्तम, यो पनि नेपालको स्टडी हो. यसमा चाहिँ के पाउनु भने उहाँहरूले elephant prefer habitat which is far from road and they avoid human settlement. And this is my study where I have found that elephants, when they are in disturbed area, they have high level of stress, highly disturbed area. So all this study, and this is in Asian elephant, and these are all recent studies. In case of African elephant, they found that elephants move very fast, they have a bunching behavior, they take a refuge, and also they found there was high stress hormone. So all this piece of information is very important, and now we know that when the elephant face fragmentation, disturbance, degradation, development, in such situation, elephant alter their behavior and movement. So elephant are capable. Elephant let's say आफ्नो behavior पनि change गर्न सक्छ when they are faced with disturbances. यो चाहिँ के भने it's a short-term adaptive strategy. एकछिनको लागि बाँच्नको लागि भए पनि they learn to do that because elephants are highly. They say that elephants can learn and they have complex cognitive abilities. However, यस्तो सानो सानो चेन्जेस जुन बिहेभियरमा आउँछ जुन मुभमेन्टमा आउँछ त्यसले चाहिँ एलिफेन्टको फिजियोलोजी, व्हेन आई से फिजियोलोजी, हेल्थ, फिटनेस, रिप्रोडक्सन र सर्भाइभलमा कसरी असर परिरहेको छ त्यो चाहिँ अहिलेसम्म कसैले स्टडी गरेको छैन. एन्ड द्याट्स वेयर इट इज इम्पोर्टेन्ट टु अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड. विथ दिस I want to give another example from our neighbor. This time not India, it's China. चाइनामा टोटल हात्तीको जनसङ्ख्या 300 वटा छ. In China, what they did was they wanted to build a dam for hydroelectricity project on Mekong River dams, on Mekong River, and it was 2003 project. So they did EIA, and EIA said that यो जुन पनि hydroelectricity project बनाउँदैछौँ त्यसको चाहिँ केही पनि असर हुँदैन biodiversityमा भनेर they wrote report. And based on that, this project came handy on, actually they sanctioned this project and it got operated in 2008. So what happened was initially there was rise in water level in this area. So elephant learned to adjust to that rising level of water. However, it was so happened, this dam actually restricted the habitat and there was no connectivity between this, there were 18 to 300 elephants. 18 elephants which got separated, there was no connectivity with these 300 elephants. And that's where there was rise in elephant-human conflict. You can see 77 humans got killed and injured by elephants in the year between 2011 to 2019. So you can see elephant learn to adjust, but till when they can learn and how that is going to hamper their survival and fitness is not known. And that was a learning lesson for China, and because there were lots of damages that was done, and finally they had to consider that we should build corridor. So this was one of the study which came recently, and you can see that such mega project, how they can slowly influence the elephant ecology. Now, finally coming to the agenda, that is Nijgadh Airport. So, as with the lens of ecologist, I can say Nijgadh is act as an extension for the corridor for Parsa and Kositapo. It is like extension corridor. It links between this population and that population. So keeping this information aside, Nepal has recently, they have planned to have a mega project that is Nijgadh Air Hub that they are planning. There are billions of dollars that are coming in to build that airport. Now, if we see through the economist viewpoint, we can say that it can be a possible game changer, because lots of Nepali citizen can get job and they can no need to go abroad to Dubai or somewhere. So that is one point when we see through economist viewpoint. But we should also understand that how sensitive, how where they are building this airport. In the ecologically sensitive area, they are building this airport, and on the top of it, there are lots of trees that they are going to destroy the habitat and so on and so forth, which I'm not going to talk in detail, because most of the Nepalese citizens now know all the detail about Nijgadh Airport. So talking about the influence, as they said that they are going to cut over 2 million trees, there are lots of impact that is going to happen. यो जति पनि इम्प्याक्टको बारेमा आई सी लट्स अफ आर्टिकल्स सर्कुलेटिङ इन नेपाल, एन्ड सबैलाई धेरैलाई नै ज्ञात होला हैन, कसरी चाहिँ इकोलोजिकल इम्प्याक्ट हुन सक्छ, कसरी इन्भाइरोमेन्टल इम्प्याक्ट हुन सक्छ, इन एडिसन टु इट्स सोशल इम्प्याक्ट कसरी हुन सक्छ, सोशल कल्चरल इकोनोमिक इम्प्याक्ट। दुई तीनवटा पोइन्ट यहाँबाट भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ जस्तै लस अफ नेटिभ हार्डवुड फरेस्ट, लस अफ अनरिपोर्टेड ट्याक्सा, कति ट्याक्सा त हामीले पढेकै छैनौँ हैन, सानसानो एनिमल भयो, सानसानो किराहरू भयो, ट्री भयो, त्यसको बारेमा त पढेकै छैनौँ। अनि त्यसरी damage to biodiversity, hindrances in animal mobility, animal हात्ती भयो, अरू जनावर गैंडाहरूको मुभमेन्टमा, and psychophysiological influence कसरी हुन सक्छ, यो there are lots of ecological viewpoint here, and environmental viewpoint मा water ground water तल जान सक्छ, biogeochemical cycle disrupt हुन सक्छ, there can be flooding, there can be rapid reduction in carbon sequestration, noise, plane aune, plane jane, traffic, and all this thing increasing. So noise, air, water pollutions can happen. There can be rapid expansion of urban areas. There can be arsenic deposition calamities. These are all potential threat that we can face, we may face in future if Nijgadh comes into action. Other than that, social, cultural, economic impact, जो चाहिँ mostly ignored फेसेट भयो, त्यसमा चाहिँ के भने रिलोकेसन अफ नेटिभ पपुलेसन, कति वर्षदेखि त्यहीँ बास गरिराख्नु भएको, त्यहीँ बसिराख्नु भएको जुन एउटा गाउँ होला, कुनै ठाउँ होला, त्यो सबै ठाउँलाई सिफ्ट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ देयर आर लट्स अफ साइकोलोजिकल चेन्जेस द्याट दे आर गोइङ टु फेस इमिडिएटली, एन्ड अल्सो रिइन्ट्रोडक्सन अफ माइग्रेन्ट्स। अब धेरै मान्छेहरू बाहिरबाट आउलान्, त्यहाँ चितवनतिर बस्न थाल्लान्, निजगढतिर बस्न थाल्लान्, त्यतिखेर चाहिँ के हुन्छ, नेटिभ कल्चरहरूको लस हुने चान्सेस छ। Other than that, what made me really, it's kind of a joke. I mean, it's kind of, it's not a practical solution. When someone in authority said that, एउटा रुख काटे बापत 25 वटा रुख लगाउँछु, तर त्यो कुरामा अलिकति ध्यान दिएर हेर्ने हो भने एउटा रुख उम्रिन या एउटा रुख भनेको निजगढमा इट्स इकोलोजी, they have gone through lots of ecological processes, ecological succession, they have gone through lots of phenomena which we are completely ignoring. It's ecologically unrealistic scheme that government has put forth. It is not, it's actually, if somebody knows about ecology and science, they will laugh at it that 1:25 is not a viable solution. So now, since we are talking about elephants, I think this is my last slide. I won't take much. I think I have already taken much time. So now let us see what may happen to elephant. किनभने हामीले हात्तीको बारेमा हेरिरहेको छौँ, त्यही भएर हात्तीमा चाहिँ के हुन सक्छ त, के पोसिबल चेन्जेस आउन सक्छ। फर्स्ट थिङ, त्यहाँ भएको जति पनि रुखहरू काट्दाखेरि इकोसिस्टम हेल्थ डिस्टर्ट हुन्छ। when there is ecosystem health distortion, in such cases there will be restricted movement of elephants. Elephantहरू movement गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यहाँ there will be vehicles, there will be flights, there will be things coming up, there will be houses. So when there is restricted movement, there is disruption of social grouping. Groupहरू छुट्टिने chances धेरै हुन्छ, and there may be death or something like that. So there will be increased encounter with humans and accidental mortality. It can be accidental, sometimes knowingly people may retaliate and then kill. And all these factors may change the psychological aspect of elephants and also the physiological influence. Now we know that when elephant perceive threat, they undergo lots of chemical changes in their body. So in such situation, they may alter the normal behavior. So they may act differently. And all this factor may reduce their survival and fitness. And finally, we may lose our viable population because of disrupted genetic exchange. These are the certain threats that I have listed. Due to Nijgadh, it is quite possible. So with this, at last, I want to say, Nijgadh is kind of it's a tug of war between economic viability and ecological sustainability. And right now, when I see articles circulating in Nepal, I feel that economic viability is quite stronger. Most of the people are supporting that Nijgadh should be there. And there are very few people who are actually communicating about ecological sustainability, that, how it may hamper lots of animals. And many times I see, most of the people discuss about problem, that what problem Nijgadh may have. But it is high time, I'm suggesting to our team, Prasant and Prasantko team, like I suggest गर्न चाहन्छु भने, we should also come up with alternatives, that like different sites, यो Nijgadh भन्दा अरु different site कहाँ possible छ, त्यसको बारेमा धेरै सानो रिसर्च गरेर एउटा डकुमेन्ट जस्तो प्रिपेयर गर्न सकिन्छ. जस्तै गौतम बुद्ध एयरपोर्ट भयो, अनि अर्को सर्लाहीमा पनि एउटा एरिया छ अरे, त्यहाँ यस्तो एयरपोर्ट बनाउन मिल्छ कि मिल्दैन. एन्ड अल्सो कनेक्टिभिटीको स्टडी हेर्दाखेरि नेपालमा एकदम कम स्टडी छ, जसमा चाहिँ करिडोरहरूको बारेमा स्टडी भएको छ. त्यसमा पनि हाम्रो ग्रुपले चाहिँ स्टडी गर्न जरुरी छ. एन्ड नाउ if you see Nijgadhलाई rather than making as a world best air hub, I think we should make it as a model airport. यस्तो एयरपोर्ट जस्तै सिंगापुरको एयरपोर्टमा हेर्ने भने they have butterfly park and they have all this stuff. So if we can make something eco-friendly, so that people from entire world will come to see just our airport. So we can create somewhere, and Nijgadh is quite sensitive area, somewhere in this alternative site. I think it is high time that we should give alternatives to our government, and we should strictly stick to our plans and speak to the concerned authority. With this, I want to end my presentation and would love to talk with you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Didi. यो अलिकति स्वास्थ्यको भनौँ न एउटा प्रतिकूलताको बीचमा पनि एडभर्स हेल्थ कन्डिसनको बावजुद पनि दिदीले चाहिँ समय छुट्याइदिनु भयो. र हजुर दिदीलाई चाहिँ एउटा प्रश्न यहाँनिर हाम्रो किरण भण्डारीले राख्नु भएको छ. यो चाहिँ एउटा चाहिँ हामीले पनि यो किरण भण्डारी मसँगै पनि हिँड्दाखेरि पनि हामीले यो माडी क्षेत्रमा पनि महसुस गरेका थियौँ. यो चाहिँ जस्तो यो भनौँ न घरेलु मदिरा वा लिक्विडहरूसँग चाहिँ अलिकति एलिफेन्टको एफिनिटी चाहिँ अलिकति बढी पोजिटिभ वा त्यस्तो कारणले नै गर्दाखेरि पनि बढी चाहिँ भनौँ न अब अहिले हजुरले भने जस्तै अब ह्युमन वाइल्ड लाइफ कन्फ्लिक्ट भन्न छोडेर एडभर्स कन्फ्लिक्टहरू देखिन सक्ने सम्भावना त्यस्तो भनौँ न यो गाउँघरमा बन्ने जुन लोकल मदिराहरू छ त्यसमा अलिकति बढी एफिनिटी हो.
म प्रशान्त भाइ र किरण भाइलाई पनि त्यो त एकदम राम्रो अब्जर्भेसन हो. किनभने मैले पनि यहाँ जङ्गलमा काम गर्दाखेरि अनि यहाँ गाउँमा काम गर्दाखेरि मलाई धेरै गाउँको मान्छेहरूले पनि कुरा गर्नुभएको थियो कि धेरै हात्तीहरू चाहिँ मोस्टली मेल एलिफेन्ट्स गेट एट्र्याक्टेड टु द्याट. एन्ड सो एलिफेन्ट हेभ अ भेरी गुड अल्फ्याक्सन भनेको स्मेलिङ पावर चाहिँ एकदम राम्रो हुन्छ. अनि त्यसमा इथेनोल कन्सन्ट्रेसन, अनि इथेनोल भन्दा नि अर्ग्यानिक कम्पाउन्डहरूको कन्सन्ट्रेसन धेरै भएको भएर हात्तीहरू चाहिँ दे गेट एट्र्याक्टेड टुवर्ड्स द्याट इज देयर. बट देयर इज नो साइन्टिफिक डकुमेन्टेसन, कसले प्रुभ गरेको चाहिँ छैन कि हात्ती किन एट्र्याक्ट हुन्छ अनि केही चिज छ कि छैन, आई मिन किन त्यो प्रोसेस किन छ भन्ने चाहिँ स्टडी भएको छैन अहिलेसम्म.
ओके, अर्को क्वेसन रहेको छ. यो अलिकति क्याप्टिभ इलेफेन्ट्सहरू चाहिँ अलिकति वाइल्ड भन्दा अझै बढी भाइलेन्ट हुन् कुनै कन्डिसनमा, के कसो हो दिदीको अनुभव थोरै?
असम अघि मैले कुरा गर्दाखेरि मस्ट एलिफेन्टको बारेमा कुरा गरेँ है. मस्ट एलिफेन्टमा चाहिँ धेरैजनाको कन्सेप्ट के छ भने मस्ट एलिफेन्ट चाहिँ धेरै एग्रेसिभ हुन्छ भन्ने कन्सेप्ट थियो मान्छेहरूलाई. तर पछि हामीले थाहा पायौँ कि हाम्रो ग्रुपले स्टडी गर्यो. We studied the stress hormone and also the testosterone hormone in elephants, which are in must, which are not in must. And we found that there is no difference in testosterone and stress hormone when they are in wild condition. अब के हुन्छ भने क्याप्टिभको कन्डिसन र वाइल्ड कन्डिसनमा एन्टायरली डिफरेन्ट हुन्छ. क्याप्टिभ कन्डिसनमा हात्तीको नेचुरल बिहेभियरहरूलाई हामीले रेस्ट्रिक्ट गरेको हुन्छौँ हैन. हात्तीले जस्तै मैले अघि भने हात्तीलाई धेरै खाना चाहिन्छ, दे फरेज. वाइल्ड कन्डिसनमा हेर्ने भने 16 घण्टा खाना खान्छ हात्तीले, 8 घण्टा रेस्ट गर्छ, अनि हरेक 2 देखि 3 घण्टा डेफिकेट गर्छ. अब त्यो बिहेभियरलाई हामीले कम्प्लिटली चेन्ज गरेका छौँ क्याप्टिभिटीमा. हामीले आफै खाना दिन्छौँ, अनि हाम्रै तरिकाको खाना दिन्छौँ, त्यो वाइल्ड खाना हुँदैन। अनि मोस्टली तिनीहरू इन्क्लोजरमा हुन्छ हैन। अनि त्यसपछि इन्टरेक्सन, सोशल ग्रुपिङ, मैले अघि भने हात्तीहरू सोशल एनिमल हो अनि तिनीहरूको चाहिँ राम्रो इन्टरेक्सन हुन जरुरी छ। अनि त्यो सोशल इन्टरेक्सनै हुँदैन क्याप्टिभिटीमा। अनि त्यही भएर दे आर मोर भाइलेन्ट। आई डोन्ट नो वेदर आई क्यान युज द वर्ड भाइलेन्ट, किनभने साइन्समा हामीले त्यो रिसर्च नगरिकन बोल्न पाइँदैन। त्यही भएर है भाइलेन्ट, दे आर मोर एग्रेसिभ देन वाइल्ड एलिफेन्ट्स।
ओके, अर्को हाम्रो किरण भण्डारीजीले नै अर्को क्वेसन राख्नु भएको छ। I also have question about your research topic, Dr. Sanjita. I will be glad if you share protocol of detection of cortisol level in fresh fecal sample. I guess that would be very nominal in fecal. Are any studies done in taking blood?
Yeah. So there were many studies. Thank you, Kiran, for that question again. And please write to me. I can send you my papers where I have clearly defined the protocols, how to measure stress hormone. So अघि मैले एउटा कुराले बोल्दा बोल्दै रोकेको थिएँ फिकल ग्लुकोकर्टिकोइड मेटाबोलाइटको बारेमा। जब मैले रिसर्च सुरु गरेँ, I had an option whether I can collect blood sample or the fecal sample, हैन, dung sample. तर blood sample collect गर्दाखेरि I avoided collecting blood sample. First thing, ethically not correct, I feel personally, because I don't want to disturb elephant. Second thing, collecting blood sample from wild elephant is dangerous. Third thing, it is quite, it's easy. There are certain techniques, capturing गर्ने, handling गर्ने, restrain गरेर blood collect गर्न सकिन्छ। तर त्यो गर्दाखेरि हात्तीलाई stress हुने chances धेरै छ। That means I'll be biasing my study. So that is where I thought of measuring hormone metabolites, not hormone. Actual hormone will be in blood. Hormone metabolites will be in dung sample, and that is where I thought of measuring the fecal samples rather than preferring the blood sample. But there are studies, mostly in African elephants and also captive Asian elephants, where they have used blood sample.
Okay. Next question, Santosh Pokrelle. Can you give your opinion on captive breeding of elephants for their conservation and population management? Is that ethical?
Well, actually, there are lots of complexity into that. But if somebody is doing it in a proper way, I think that is quite good. I mean, it's really required in areas where we want to learn something about elephant biology, and in the areas where there are less elephant population. I think captivity is not bad. Many people say that captive elephants should not be kept in captivity, but if they are following certain ethics, for example, हात्तीलाई क्याप्टिभिटीमा राख्दाखेरि सिमेन्टेड फ्लोर राखेको हुन्छ। धेरै जूहरुमा जाँदाखेरि देखेको होला है, हात्तीको खुट्टा चाहिँ धेरै सेन्सिटिभ हुन्छ। So they are very sensitive and they can feel that cemented area is very hard for them. So in many zoo now, if you go to US and Japan, you can see that they have started using sand instead of concrete. So if they are doing something, if they are following the biology of elephants and establishing the captive breeding center, I think it's not a bad idea.
Okay, कसैलाई आफुलाई चाहिँ अनम्युट गरेर कुनै क्वेशनहरु राख्न मन लागेको छ भने राख्न सक्नुहुन्छ। कोही छ? कसैलाई क्वेशन छ भने राख्न सक्नुहुन्छ है। Is there anyone? Okay, खासै छैन जस्तो लाग्यो।
Yes, Prashant sir.
Okay, Kiran.
I'm again in mic, so thank you very much, Dr. Sanjita, for the wonderful presentation.
Dhanyawad.
I have had some query, like it's kind of out of the topic. Like most of your research topic are focused in India. Why not in Nepal? Like,
oh, wonderful. That's my long-term idea. So के भयो भने म PhD गर्न इन्डिया आए हैन, अनि इन्डियामा एक्चुअली म इन्डियालाई इन्डिया जस्तो भएर हेर्दिन के, इन्डियालाई एलिफेन्टको तरिकाले लेन्सबाट हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ मलाई के लाग्छ भने इन्डिया इज अ भेरी गुड प्लेस फर स्टडिङ एलिफेन्ट बिहेभियर एन्ड अल्सो फिजियोलोजी। किनभने त्यहाँ 30,000 हात्ती छ and there are different dimension. नेपालमा त्यो भेरिएसन छैन। नेपालमा हेर्ने भने हाम्रोमा कन्फ्लिक्ट एरिया पनि त्यति धेरै छैन, झापामा हो अनि अलिकति बर्दियामा हो, अनि पपुलेसन पनि अलिकति कम छ। तर that's where we can do comparative study between India and Nepal. And नेपालमा अब इन्डियाको केसमा हेर्ने भने entirely different dimension. जस्तै कर्नाटकमा हेर्ने भने हात्तीहरू एकदम they are in very good condition, if I can say that. Good condition in a sense, there are intact forests, there are less disturbances, and in Karnataka itself there is areas where there are lots of conflict in a sense, adverse human-elephant interaction. And again, if you see in West Bengal, there is lots of disturbances. So that kind of variation is there. So as an ecologist, I feel, you know, India is a very good, I think I also encourage many of you guys to come and study here, because it's a very good area, good study site to focus on elephant biology. Having been said that, Nepal is also a good model right now, because there are many studies that is lacking in Nepal. Like I said, we have not studied about elephant corridor. We have not studied about stress hormones. We have not studied about general elephant behaviors. Most of the study in Nepal is focused on habitat preferences, habitat suitability, population structure. So, you know, there is lots of gap that we can fill. So that's where I encourage most of you students, whoever is listening to me, to start some kind of work. I'm always there to support you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sanjita दिदी. र आजको लागि चाहिँ हामी यो सेसनको करिब करिब एन्डिङमा छौँ. कसैले केही क्वेसन राख्नु भएको छ? We are been discussing only on human conflict. What about inter-species conflict? त्यस के छ दिदी? भनौँ न वाइल्ड स्ट्याटसमै इंटर-स्पीसीज conflict.
Inter-species conflict भनेर के भन्न खोज्नु भएको होला? Can you explain? Can you unmute yourself?
हजुर हजुर, यो सायद त्यही वाइल्ड स्ट्याटसमै एलिफेन्टको अरु भनौँ न अरु जस्तो अब अरु स्पिसिससँगको कन्फ्लिक्ट कस्तो हुन्छ होला भन्ने कुरा हो जंगलमा.
अघि मैले अघि भने है, थ्यानाटोलोजीको बारेमा पनि कुरा गरे, अनि I said that elephants are quite compassionate towards other species. So till now, if you see, no such study has been done. If I am till date, if I am aware about. So mostly, if I see when I'm in forest, जब म जंगलमा हुन्छु काम गर्दाखेरि पनि, I see that, you know, if there is a large body, I feel that, you know, if there is a large body animal like bison or something like that, then there might be that habitat wise, but I have not directly seen any kind of adverse interaction between these animals. So I'm not sure, you know, so we don't have a scientific documentation of such kind of stuff. I think we should also study about it. Yeah.
ओके, आजको लागि चाहिँ यो हामी सेसनको अन्तिममा आइपुगेका छौँ. यो एकदमै स्वास्थ्यको भनौँ न प्रतिकूलताको बावजुद पनि दिदीले समय छुटाइदिनु भयो. वी फर बायोडाइभर्सिटी कन्जर्भेसन चितवनको तर्फबाट एकदमै आभारी छौँ. हामीले छिट्टै नै यो सेभ निजगढ भनेर छुट्टै क्याम्पेन पनि गर्दैछौँ, डिजिटल प्रोटेस्ट वा भर्चुअल प्रोटेस्ट गर्दैछौँ. त्यसमा चाहिँ पनि दिदीको सहभागिताको लागि केही समय छुटाइदिनुको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु. र अरू विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूलाई पनि म त्यो प्रोटेस्टको बारेमा जानकारी गराउनेछु. त्यो प्रोटेस्ट चाहिँ विशेष गरी गीत कविता वा रचना वा एसे वा जुनसुकै चिज वा आफूले आएर आफ्नो धारणाहरू राखेर चाहिँ हामीले भर्चुअली चाहिँ यो अहिले निजगढ आवश्यकता छैन, निजगढ अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय विमानस्थल अहिलेको हाम्रो देशको भौगोलिक र अरू सामाजिक परिस्थितिको कारणले पनि सम्भव छैन र यसलाई चाहिँ रोक्नुपर्छ भनेर हामीले चाहिँ केही समयपछि क्याम्पेन गर्दैछौँ. यहाँ उपस्थित सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरू, विद्यार्थीहरू, सामाजिक सञ्जाल फेसबुकबाट हामीलाई हेरिरहनु भएको सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई यो समय छुटाइदिनु भएकोमा एकदमै आभारी छौँ. र स्पेसली दिदीलाई चाहिँ यो फेरि एकचोटि आभार प्रकट गर्दै आजको लागि चाहिँ यो सेसन यहीँ इन्ड गर्दैछौँ. थ्याङ्क यू सो मच एभ्रिवान.
ठिक छ प्रशान्त भाइ.